back. I've just watched episode 6 of season 2 of Rings of Power. What I will give this episode is it went by fast. I was surprised when the credits rolled, so I think that's probably a good sign, because sometimes it doesn't go by as fast. Then again, it just might be because this specific episode did not want to spend more than a couple scenes on any one topic, and this might be the most jumping around it's ever done. Anyway, we open with Elendil running through the woods and fighting some orcs. I mean, there's things I could say about this scene, like him not hearing orcs sneaking up on him, but that's a minor thing. What is more interesting is the fact that this is his only scene this episode, which is bizarre. This makes me really feel like they film things without actually knowing how they come together. I know this has been a theory I've put forward in one of these videos, and I think this confirms it. I mean, what the only explanation for having a single scene of Elendil is that they had this fight scene lying around that they couldn't fit anywhere else, so they just stuck it in this episode. It's just a little strange. The transition for it's not too bad, because it goes from like this drawing to a shot of Eregion. Like, okay, so in Eregion, Celebrimbor is kind of going a little crazy because of his work on trying to complete the 9 rings, and because Sauron is definitely messing with his head. And he's gotten to such a point that he's forgotten this blacksmith lady's name. Like, he's really out of it. So, and then Sauron shows up. They've given him a new look, which is probably good. He spent maybe a couple too many episodes dressed like a BL Chinese drama romantic interest. Yeah, I just realized he has been dressing as if they're trying to go for like a Wen Cushing vibe, which is amazing. It does make me realize that even with pink robes, eyeliner, and fighting with a fan, Wen Cushing comes off as more intimidating than this version of Sauron. That's like fact. Because at least when Wen Cushing's in a scene, you actually think someone might die. How am I positively comparing a show with so little budget that it had to run nut ads in the middle of its runtime? How am I comparing it favorably to a $1 billion production? What? Okay, well, I got it. One of these days I'll talk about my toxic relationship with the narrative implosion that was A Word of Honor. Let's focus on this show. So, Anatar comes in and tells all these guys to stop working and take a break. Which is funny, because they weren't really doing any work. They were just standing around. This is something I've noticed in a bunch of these scenes. They seem frightened of actually filming any smithing. Whenever there's these smithing scenes where they're all in the blacksmithing shop, they're all standing around doing almost nothing. It's a weird choice. I don't think it would be too hard to have like some people maybe weighing metals in the background, or moving things, or like banging things, make it look like an active forge. But it just seems like there's like half a dozen people standing around doing nothing. I don't know. They just don't like showing smithing for some reason. Anyway, Anatar comes in. So Celebrimbor is concerned that he's going crazy, rightfully, a very understandable concern. And Anatar is like, no, you're just inner work. And he points out, he's like, oh, these people outside, they need your attention because, you're in charge of this city. And he's like, no, the smithing comes first. And Anatar decides to take it upon himself to do the administrative stuff himself, and claims that Celebrimbor told him so, although it is unclear if he actually told him that or he's just making that up. But anyway, the people outside show him this body that has some carved words in it from Adar that is in that language means where is he, presumably Sauron. and he tells them to bury the body so that they don't see it. He talks with this lady. Her name's Daniel. We learned this at this episode. I don't believe they've mentioned it before, but if they had, it was very offhand. He gets her to agree to help him keep the Smiths away from Celebrimbor so that he can focus and just leave him alone. And then we go to Galadriel, who is in her little prisoner meeting with Adar. Basically, he wants her because he thinks that combined with the ring and the crown of Morgoth that he has, that he used to try to kill Sauron, he thinks that would successfully kill Sauron. Lore-wise, I'm not sure how that makes sense. They keep mentioning, destroy every trace of him. From a lore perspective, that doesn't make any sense. Even at the end of Lord of the Rings, Sauron wasn't actually destroyed. He's a cosmic spirit. He just lost his power. But in this version, it's possible to destroy him, I guess. Maybe. I'm not sure why he thinks that the ring's power combined with the crown of Morgoth would be able to destroy Sauron. If, as the show claims, it's infused with the power of Morgoth, this crown, I would say that trumps stuff that Sauron made. Probably. I don't know. No, maybe not. But it is weird that he just thinks that would, because it's counterintuitive to just assume that. But, whatever. Anyway, he locks her back up at the end, which is hilarious, because nothing about this portrayal of Galadriel makes me think that she would just let that happen. They're alone in this tent. It seems totally in her character to try to escape in this moment, so it is a little strange that she just kind of lets it happen. I know there's an army outside, but the show has done a poor job of making that seem like a threat to Galadriel, so, whatever. Now we cut to the trial of Elendil. What I did like, there's a couple moments in this episode that do a good job of making me uncertain of what is going to happen. And that was almost like a new thing where it's like, oh, maybe what's going to happen? That was great. And this is one of them when I'm not quite sure what Elendil's going to do here. I mean, it's not shocking, but the way it's done makes you, they linger on the moment effectively, and you wonder for a moment, is he going to give in? And I like that emotionally. I think that was a good moment. He refuses to recognize Pharazôn as king. Maybe it will come in a later episode, but before they decided to make his son 100% evil, his main motivation was he seemed to really like Elendil's daughter, and he's just murdered her childhood friend and thrown her father in prison. And I thought there might be some tension there or some character dialogue between them, but no. I hope they bring that up just because that feels like something they have built up toward that would make sense to discuss. I do like what they did with Elendil's daughter this episode, or more, I like what the actress was doing. I thought the kind of play of I'm with this political faction and I believe in it, but I don't want my father to die. I thought she played that very well. They've decided that they're going to do the old ways and feed him to a sea serpent. Let the Valar decide, So that's exciting. All right, then we go to Tom Bombadil, who is fully in his role as mentor figure, which as I've said before, doesn't really make sense with the character as originally written. But this is not Tom Bombadil. This is some other character.
They were in pain.
It is the future, you see.
Future?
Basically, they are fully doing the Empire Strikes Back plot, complete with visions of Nori getting hurt, and he is he's thinking about it, realizes Nori might be in trouble, and then gets interrupted by Tom Bombadil, and Tom Bombadil is like, you need to do your training and whatnot. I mean, it's so Empire Strikes Back that it's not even subtle. It's not even trying to change a couple things. No. It's wow. Then he wants to show him something, so he puts on a hat. I don't know if this is supposed to be like his famous blue hat design, or if it's actually meant to be gray, because it seems to evoke Gandalf's hat, which I really hope they're not going to say he got it from him, because that would... I don't like that choice. Whatever. Then we cut to Nori talking with the leader of the stores. She's trying to convince them to, like, leave before they get murdered by the desert evil people. And then there's Poppy, who has, like, a romantic scene with this guy. I'm shocked at how fast they could... I mean, that is, like, straight to first base. Good for him. It says a lot about how, as they were kissing, it was a sincere, kind of out of nowhere, but the music was sincere, and there was a sweetness to it, and I knew that the show had to undercut it. They're incapable of letting sweet sincerity just linger, which is bizarre because this is supposed to be an adaptation of Tolkien, but that I knew they would undercut it. And sure enough, they did. After they kiss, he's like, "Did you eat such and such for breakfast?" Implying his bad breath. And they laugh and whatnot, but it just is indicative of, like, they can't just let something sweet hang there and let us feel that it has to be undercut. I don't understand that obsession, but okay. Then Poppy and Nori have a talk, because Nori's thinking about turning herself in to save these people, and Poppy is like, "You said that the stranger is important and we need to fight for this." And Poppy convinces Nori not to turn herself in, and that's the last we see of them. You'll hear that a lot, where they just sort of pop into a plot line, spend a couple minutes on it, or in Harandir's case, like 15 seconds, and then move on. Then we go back to the stranger, and Tom is showing him, like, this forest of dead trees, and he's gonna find his staff in there. Very staff focused this season. It's like the wizards need their staves and they need to find it. Interesting direction. Less interesting is we're back to Tom Bombadil as Yoda, and because the stranger points out that Nori might be in trouble and I need to go. Can I just go and help her and then come back? And he's like, "No, you can't do it. You have to choose now whether you're doing this or that."
I saw her. Somehow I know that unless I find her soon, she will die. Both of them will die.
Oh, I can't keep the vision out of my head. They're my friends. I gotta help them.
You must not go.
Once I know that she's safe, I could return to you.
Yoda, I promise to return and finish what I've begun. You have my word.
Turn away now, and you can never return to this path.
Exactly like Empire Strikes Back. It's ridiculous. The same exact thing. And then to try to convince the stranger to stay on the path of looking for a staff instead of going off to save Nori, he says,
"Many that die deserve life. Some that live deserve death. Who are you to give it to them?"
I wanted to reach into the screen and strangle him. Okay, well, first of all, that confirms that this is Gandalf. I mean, I know I've been delusional, like, this entire season, hoping that this would be a blue wizard and not Gandalf. But no, the stranger's definitely Gandalf.
Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them, Frodo?
Stop saying quotes from other pieces of media. It does not help you. It doesn't. It takes you out. It frustrates me, for one. And also, to rob Gandalf of his own piece of wisdom that's so iconic to him and his ideology, and then give it to Tom Bombadil, that he got it from Tom Bombadil, which does not make sense, because that's not Tom Bombadil's... It doesn't suit Tom Bombadil's vibe at all, this piece of wisdom. This is the reference that pissed me off the most. No, stop. Anyway, he leaves him with sticks, and then that's the last we see of him. Then we go to Khazad-dûm, where people are mining, and then we cut them throwing gold at the feet of the king. Again, this show about smithing seems to be allergic to show actual craft and smithing take place, because they show us a scene of mining, and you would think that they'd cut to them kind of processing before they showed the finished product. Like, because the way it's cut makes it seem like they pulled these gold coins and gold cups out of the ground like it's pirate treasure at the king's feet. I know that's not what it is. It's obvious what's happening, but it's just another example that they seem incapable of showing any smithing on screen. You'd think that they'd have sets for that, considering that smithing is a big plot point in this show. But no, okay, we gold coins at the feet. The ring has made the king super greedy and whatnot. So much so that he has stopped the Mithril shipments to the elves. Celebrimbor's out of Mithril. He summons his son, and then the son is like, why did you summon me? And he's like, I didn't summon you. And then it turns out Anatar did. But this makes no sense, because the prince, it has nothing to do with this conversation. He's just there to be like the audience point of view for it, but there's no reason for Anatar to summon him for this meeting. In fact, he has every reason not to, because this guy's already suspicious of him. He doesn't actually want him at this meeting. So I'm not quite sure. It would have made more sense for him to just walk in on it. I don't understand why he was summoned to this meeting by Anatar. Anyway, Anatar wants more Mithril and gives some proposals to get that Mithril, and the king refuses. His son's delighted about, because his son doesn't trust Anatar at all. And Anatar's like, okay, fine. Looks at the fire and sees like a vision of the Balrog, which implies the Balrog is going to show up in this show, which is wild. Okay. And then he just walks out. And then Durin tries to convince his father to take off the ring. Another scene that I think they did well at making it unclear what he would do. Just the way it's blocked and the way it lingers, you're like, oh, is he actually going to take off the ring? But no, he doesn't. But his son tries. And then he goes to his wife, and his wife is like, basically, we have to revolt, because the ring is in control of the kingdom now, and we have to stop the mining, because the mining's getting more. This, like, stop the mining sort of subplot, it would have felt better if they did a good job of conveying why it needed to be stopped. We know that there's a Balrog under there that they're going to awaken. They don't know that. She kind of knows that. She knows there's a looming evil, but if they had maybe, like, the mining was dangerous and was hurting people, it would, I feel like, make more sense that this is such an urgent issue to Durin. It would make sense. But no, she's trying to convince him to basically betray his father, and he breaks down and mourns that and says he can't betray his father because he still loves him, still sees him when he looks at him, even though that the ring is controlling him. But she's like trying to convince him. Then we go to a different scene where someone is a loved one is trying to convince someone else of doing some political act. So Elendil's daughter's trying to convince him to swear fealty to the king and not get eaten by a sea worm, and he refuses because he wants to stand by his principles and have integrity. And again, I like the actress's performance of someone who really wants her father to not die. Then she pulls out the big guns and brings the queen to try to convince him not to go through with it, but he's like, it's not faith unless I act upon it, so I have faith that the Valar will not kill me, or if they do, so be it. And she's like, okay, to the disappointment of his daughter. All right, and then we go back to Disa. She is basically doing a activist protest of standing in front of the mining operation to prevent it, and then sings in a way that calls down bats to chase them off. I wish that we had any inkling that was in her power set. That kind of comes out of nowhere, but okay. And then it turns out that he's with her and they're doing it together and blocking the mining. Again, I don't feel like they've established the urgency of the mining. thing, like if she had said that this specific shaft has evil behind it, like I think it would make more sense that they're taking a stand over this specifically. But I don't know. This is the last we see of them this episode. Again, you'll hear a lot of that. Now we're at the very well attended sea trial for Elendil thing. Again, they are not very good with scale. This was an opportunity to redeem themselves from the coronation scene in episode 3 of season 2. But no, there's barely any people. It doesn't look well attended at all, which I thought at first I was like, oh well, it's a religious ceremony. Maybe it's sacred, maybe it's only exclusive, but later it's going to feel odd that there's so few people considering what they choose to do. Anyway, he is going into the water, and then Muriel stops it and decides to go in his place because he did his acts in her name and they can't stop her. So she goes into the water and does the sea trial and faces the sea monster, and the sea monster doesn't kill her because of course it doesn't. Afterwards, like, everyone in this little group is chanting her name and it's like, Queen Muriel. So is she queen now or not? Because it's hard to say, because after one crowd chanted Farazan was king, and now this crowd is chanting Muriel, so is she queen now? Unclear. Again, it would have been more powerful if it felt like more people were watching. I'm just realizing now that there are people watching from the cliffside here. It is not clear that they needed to make that more obvious. I just noticed that now. It doesn't read well on screen. Good, there's more people, but those more people, you can't see them. That you need the extra people to be closer to the crowd so that the eye kind of feels like it's an expanse, like everything is people or something, but it's not. As it is, it doesn't read well. Anyway, then we have a shot of Farazan touching the Palantir and seeing something. That's the end of that plot line for this episode. Then we go back to Adar, and Galadriel's decided to tell Adar everything, including that Halbrand was Sauron, which you would think would make him be like, oh my god, Halbrand told me to attack Eregion. Maybe attacking Eregion's exactly what Sauron wants. But weirdly, it's Galadriel who makes that connection, and it's not Adar, even though Adar has just got the information that would allow him to come to that conclusion. She hasn't. But whatever, she has to be the one who always knows what's coming, and no one else does, so whatever. We do get this shot of his army. I wish they had put just a couple more bonfires. I know I keep talking about scale, but like, just put a couple more bonfires, like here or here. Just make it look a little bigger. This looks like the size of a festival, not an army. And there's another shot where it's clear that there's more, but they're not connected. So again, the scales doesn't read as well. It's fine. It's minor. Anyway, then we go back to Sauron, shot of his little hair bun. They don't want him to lose his roots as a BL Chinese romance drama. Because we can't have Sauron lose his roots as a BL Chinese romantic interest. No, we can't have that. Anyway, we get a shot of Celebrimbor doing actual smithing work, or at least the sketching of it, which is nice. Then he hears a noise because the siege bells are going off because the orcs are attacking. And he tries to find out, but Anatar is like stopping him, and he finally stands his ground and is like, stop telling me what to do. I'm gonna go outside. This is my city. He goes to do that, and then Sauron like shuts his eyes and does some of his illusion magic, and when Celebrimbor goes outside, it's perfectly peaceful. Love this. Absolutely great. This is the first time where he's come across as intimidating, is this moment, when you realize he's capable of this. I mean, they've said he's capable of this, but they emotionally, you haven't felt it until this moment, when Celebrimbor's vision is completely blocked. It's awesome. Awesome. I love it. I freaking love it. It's great. I like this scene in general. He gives him some mithril that I presume he stole from the dwarves, since the dwarves rejected it. He mentions the Delve Master guy. Maybe he gave it to him, but that's off screen. It's weird that we spent an entire season explaining how Elrond got that tiny bit of mithril that went into the 3 Elvish rings, but the mithril for the 9, who knows maybe where he got that, but he has it. He gives it to Celebrimbor and then convinces him to keep going with the 9, comparing him to Feanor. This is supposed to be Feanor's hammer, I think, and makes several references to Feanor in the Silmarils to try to egg on his pride that he's going to overshadow Feanor. I like this stuff. Great. This scene was in general just absolutely a delight. Great. I love the illusion stuff. I'm a sucker for this. I have said so. I have been very honest. I am a sucker for Mind Palace, weird illusion magic. It's my favorite. I love it. Side note, that statue of Feanor, not great. That crystal that's supposed to represent the Silmaril looks like the kind of crystal you find at a New Age healing crystal shop. Even my friend from work, who is pretty positive toward this show, commented today that she was not a fan of that statue, and I was like, you're right. Anyway, that's not important. Alright, and then we see a shot of Sauron, like, turning the illusion back off. Also, great shot where it goes back to the hellscape that is the siege. And then we have the orcs throwing, like, fire catapults at Eregion, and then we cut to black. It went fast. I love the Celebrimbor Anatar stuff, because I always do. I'm very upfront about that. I'm weak to that sort of thing. It's a weird pacing. Again, the pacing is strange. Some of these plot lines are so stretched thin that there's only like one scene of Arondir. There's one scene of, or basically I guess 3 scenes stitched together of Nori and dwarves. It's like it's kind of bouncing around. It went by fast. When it was over, I was like, oh, it's over. That's good. But there's some serious problems. The Tom Bombadil stuff was very frustrating for me personally. But I'm looking forward to the next episode. They only have 2 episodes left. I'm trying to figure out how much they're going to squeeze into those last 2 episodes, or what are they going to leave for season 3. It'll be interesting to find that out, but I'll talk about that when it happens. See you then, I guess.